Hello, hello. Welcome to another installment of Prospero in Bermuda with your host, Steven. It's the 13th of April, 2024. And as you can see, we are back at Casa Klebrig, my normal cottage. I've been up on a different part of the property for a while during the winter months when it was a little colder. But this is a much more comfortable area. Certainly the background looks better even if I'm stuck with cars driving by, because this is the cottage that's right on the road. It's a very old estate. This is like what the stables used to be, or at least where people would water their horses for a bit before moving on. So the last time we spoke, I said that I was going to be taking this channel in a different direction. I don't really have the old recordings, the book recordings, the readings that I did. A lot of hours, but got to do something new. I've kept the Lord of the Rings stuff in there, but I'm trying to pivot with this channel and kind of start it afresh in a manner that excites me. Because although I enjoyed doing a lot of the readings, it wasn't gaining much traction. Certainly nothing like the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien stuff ever did. So I just figured, well, why not just talk about the books that I like? I know there's a lot of those types of channels on there, on YouTube already. However, I think that I have put it this way, a lot of the books that I see being made are people that I can already glean what their political views are, what their moral views are, and they're usually of a certain age. There's a couple of older ones out there that I like, and I'll give shout outs to. Michael Vaughan is someone I really like, but again, we have a different metaphysical position when we come to books, but which is not to say I'm going to be critical of him or anything. I'm not, because I said I really like the guy, but I just would bring a different perspective maybe to some of the reading choices, even if I end up reviewing some of the same books that he does, because, well, one reason I like him so much is that our reading tastes are very similar. But I also have reading tastes that veer into areas that I know he would never touch. All right, bit of heartburn there. So what I'm doing is I'm actually stealing an idea that I've seen online, which is to do a challenge, a book reading challenge, because I have a lot of books. I spend a lot of money on books, and I've realized that I'm at a point where my enjoyment of acquiring books, especially beautifully bound versions of them, has overshot my commitment to reading them to some degree. So, I'm going to undertake a period of fasting when it comes to buying books, so not reading them. And I'm going to do a 100-book challenge, which means that I have to read 100 books before buying any new ones. So it starts now with the one caveat that I have some books on order already that are already being shipped to me. And so that's fine. I can pay for those when they come. They do not count as being new books. I've also committed to wanting to collect all the Tintin comics if I could over time. Now, that will be the one caveat where I've set that aside, and I've already had them put aside at the bookstore. And so I'm going to buy one each week. I'm starting that with those clauses built into the contract with myself to not purchase any more books until I've read and reviewed 100 books. So that's where I'm going with the channel, is that I want to talk about books that I'm reading. Another thing that might be different, Michael Vaughan and others that talk about their books, usually, well, some people do nonfiction, but I will do nonfiction as well. I probably won't do it as often. They take longer to read. We're just going to see how it goes. I might have different sections. I don't think so. I think it's just going to be an accumulation of 100 books. Now, some people have said, well, if you want to put out content, then, it's best that you don't read a really long book, that you should just stick to short ones. I don't think so. I think you could mix them, read more than one book at a time. I typically don't like doing that, but I'll see if I can discipline myself to do it. To have be reading shorter books while working on one longer one. Certainly be working on both a novel and a nonfiction book at the same time. I'm quite cognizant of the fact that I like to read nonfiction books that interest me that I don't necessarily agree with. So there may be some content up here that gets flagged. I doubt. Well, no, I don't doubt it. If I could review the books that I want to review, I might get flagged. But since it's not monetized, it should be okay. Well, we'll just have to see, you know. So let's get started then. I'm currently reading 2 books. I'm almost through both of them. So let's get started with number 1 and number 2. We gotta start easy, you know. Not and I do have Les Miserables on order, and I do intend to read it as part of this 100 book challenge. But we're getting started with an easy one. It's a throwback to when I was a kid. The Chronicles, the Dragonlance novel, The Chronicles, Volume 1, Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman. Dragons of Autumn Twilight. So when I was about 12 years old, I discovered the Dragonlance novels. I think the first one I read was The Legend of Huma, which was kind of a good one to start with because it's a prequel, standalone novel that about this character Huma, who was the hero of the War of the Lance, and it feeds in very nicely to this trilogy of books because he's a character that is often referenced for his sacrifice, 1,000 years prior. These books start with a group of companions coming together. You have Tanis, half-elven. You have who's neither accepted by the elves nor humans. He lives a long life, but accepted by neither. We'll see on the cover here. This is Gold Moon. She's like a tribal chieftain or chiefess. Sorry. And this is Sturm Brightblade. He is a knight of Solamnia. Who lives by a great code. I remember how they all seem so much older than me, but in the book, Sturm is only 29, and I'm like 45 next month. So this book is followed by Dragons of Winter Night, and then Dragons of Spring Dawning, and then there's a 4th one that is sort of takes place filling in different chapters, or it's like The Next Generation. I've never read that one, but I read all 3 of these as a kid, plus about 60 more. These books, as it turns out, were Dungeons and Dragons. Were like a type of Dungeons and Dragons game, and the novels were written to give back information on what was originally a game. I had no idea. I just read them as novels. They will be on nobody's top 10 list of greatest fantasy novels ever, not by a long shot. Well, maybe somebody's. That guy Joe Monte something. He's the guy that played Deathstroke, married to Sofia Vergara. He thinks that these are the greatest things in the world, but you know they're not, at least in terms of literature. However, as a child, I was swept away by them. I absolutely adored them. I would highly, highly recommend them for the young, and you know, maybe the young at heart as well. Give it a go. You know, not everything we have to read has to be great literature. It pales in comparison to The Lord of the Rings. But on the other hand, having said that, I would much rather read a Dragonlance novel than slog through some of the really nihilistic stuff that I've been reading, and like the Fallen and all that sort of thing. That the Prince of Nothing. I read a couple of those. I just wanted to throw myself off the cliff, or something like The Wheel of Time. Now I have never gotten past book 1. I'm told it's good for the first couple of books, but then just slogs and slogs and slogs. So this will give you a quick fantasy fix. The characters are fun. They're surprisingly well drawn, and the action clicks along. The only thing I've noticed so far, which I didn't notice as a 12-year-old, is that it has a very distinct turns up its nose at religion somewhat. Right off the bat, you meet these priests who are bad guys, and that there's this idea that these people are hypocrites. However, it's not atheistic because there's a reference to the old gods. So you could maybe say that this is quite a pagan series of novels, that maybe the authors are turning up their nose at institutional religion of today, with priests and clerics and so on, and want us to remember some pre-Christian era. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. It's kitchen sink stuff. There's no deep philosophical conversations by any of the characters. It's mostly action and driving the plot forward. But it's a good read, and I would recommend dipping your toe into them, particularly if you're a kid or have kids who are sort of just coming into the fantasy genre and want to learn what it's all about. Because you have a warrior, you have, Caramon and Raistlin. Those are two popular characters. They're these twins. Caramon is this warrior. Raistlin is this mage, mysterious guy. Is he good? Is he evil? Well, we know he wants power more than anything else. So the question is, how will he use that power? There's a little thing called a Kender, which is sort of like a hobbit, but he's pickpockety, and they're immune to fear. They're just very curious. There's various female warriors, and it's just a lot of fun. There's the old dwarf who's grumpy and so on, but he's a good-hearted character. I'll say this: in these chronicles, there are two characters. Well, I won't say how many. Put it this way: well, there's more than that. There are some scenes where characters die that still sort of affect me to this day. You really come to love these characters when you become invested in them. So, that's Dragons of Autumn Twilight. And I will say a few words about Winter Night and Spring Dawning next time around. I haven't really said anything about the plot, because I've kind of forgotten it. I've only just started reading it. It's begun, though, with the companions meeting up together at the Inn of the Last Home, having said they're going to go off for 5 years on adventures and come back and meet. And immediately it seems like they're being pursued, and that it looks like there's a war brewing. There's draconians, which are kind of like orcs, that are around. There's these weird cleric types. So we know that something's wrong. Gold Moon is the keeper of this mysterious staff, and so they need to protect her. So we're just sort of understanding what the war is. Now, we do know that the evil dragon goddess, Takisis, is behind all of it, that she's invading the land of Kryn once more. And that will play out over the next 3 novels. It's good fun. All right. The next book, number 98 or number 2 in the 100 book challenge, is the instant Canadian bestseller, The Demonologist by Andrew Piper. I've been reading this now for a couple of weeks, and I'm only halfway through, which is just inexcusable. I've not been, I tend to take it to like a bar or a restaurant with me and just sort of read it quietly. The best way for me to sum this book up is to say it has a Dan Brown-like plot, but it reads as literature. The Dan Brown-like plot is that it's a cuckolded professor of literature who's spent his whole life basically studying Paradise Lost, Milton's Paradise Lost, where Satan is the sympathetic hero of the piece. And, he has an estranged relationship with his wife who's cheating on him, like, totally in front of his face with this other professor. He has an 11-year-old daughter whom he does get along with, and there's reference to a darkness that's in him, like a sort of depression that he sees in her as well. Within the first few pages, this strange woman comes to him in his office and offers him the opportunity to come to Venice, stay in a very nice hotel, and observe a phenomenon, but she won't say what it is. He's reluctant to go, but circumstances being what they are, he ends up going with her. Strange things happen, and it's called The Demonologist, so you can probably guess that it has something to do with demons and possession, that sort of thing. Then he is caught up in a kind of a race against time to save both himself and his daughter from mysterious forces that seem to be able to use human agents, but are also, you have no idea who's behind this. At first he thinks it's the Vatican that has asked him to do it. Then he realizes that it is Legion, and that we are many. And yeah, that's the kind of Dan Brown plot, except that the writing is so evocative and beautiful. I keep stopping at sentences. His use of metaphor and simile is gorgeous. He also writes in the present tense, which is rare. It's usually, I did this, I did that, or Robert Langdon ran down the plaza, but it's, I walk into my car, I get in, we drive along, and it's this. And so there's an immediacy to the narrative that really pulls you in. And when he intersperses that with these lines of poetic beauty, you feel like you're in a kind of modern Paradise Lost. So I really do recommend this book. I haven't got to the end. I hope it doesn't turn into a schmaltzy sort of soap opera. It started so well. I don't know how he can end it without it, but I hope he, rescues his daughter and all that sort of thing. And I hope it comes to a good end. I hope it doesn't come to a cynical end, because that would really feel like a betrayal of what's happening. I have a sense that he's going to go from being an atheist to some kind of believer in a generic God. It's Canadian. He's not going to become a full-on evangelical Christian. But I think something great is going to happen at the end. Anyway, that's it for the first 2 books. My fan is going like mad, so you're probably hearing it. So I'm going to end this video now and just say, keep reading. This is really fun. As you can tell, I'm kind of upbeat. I'm really liking, the energy that I feel as we're doing this. And I can't wait to see what books I end up reading over the next weeks and months to come this year. All right. Ciao for now. Bye.